This is going to be the biggest crypto narrative of 2026 and perhaps one of the biggest trends that the industry has ever seen. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you my full framework, teaching you how to capitalize and showing you exactly what I am doing to play this trend and position in this trend over the next month in preparation for next year, where I think this is really going to rise to prevalence. So if you enjoy content like this, where I give you the hottest crypto alpha, make sure to subscribe and click the post notification bell so I can continue helping you make money in this market. So before we get into the narrative itself, just wanted to give you a quick Bitcoin update. Pretty much all you need to know is on the H4 right now, we are currently forming a range between the $81,000 wick low and $89,000. I do want to see Bitcoin consolidate at least for a couple of days above this level before I seriously start looking at positioning in alts. However, there are some setups which I'm going to evaluate later in today's video underneath the broader narrative that I'm going to be discussing today, which are looking pretty good. However, in terms of going from a more risk-off stance to a more risk-on stance, this is the level that we do need to flip to look for a potential continuation push to the 95 to the 100K zone. Right now, the market is looking okay. It's actually the first time that Bitcoin has been able to consolidate after a pump in a matter of weeks, but I do still want to see a key level flip in this region. Until then, we are largely range bound on Bitcoin. However, across the altcoin market, there have been some interesting developments, but what I really want to dive into today is a big shift that's happening in the market. So I started thinking about the idea for this video when I saw this comment from Geordie Alexander when he was asked about what he thinks of this Bitcoin drop. He says, "I don't think a big market maker blew up enough to warrant this sell-off, so I feel like it's more whales panic cashing out. Let's see." That's also something I've been covering on the channel over the past couple of weeks, how we have seen a lot of OG whale selling, which has clearly put pressure on the Bitcoin price. As Geordie says, I sold some Bitcoin up there, been rebuying down and out of the money on those buys ATM. I've also been buying on the way down for Bitcoin. If you've been watching my videos, took some entries in the 90K zone, been laddering down on a TWAP order all the way down to 81, and my average entry is probably somewhere in the middle here. I'll continue to add, but for now, just chilling after I've had some decent orders already filled on Bitcoin. I am also under the same belief as Geordie here. I don't believe we get an extended bear market in risk assets until the socialists take over the White House, so these are just choppy waters. The risk is for alts that people move on to new casinos like equity perps. So he's basically saying here, he expects the macro bull market to continue, but he doesn't know if that liquidity is going to flow as aggressively into altcoins because a lot of retail has started to shift into other areas of the market. And if you do look at the crypto price performance versus the S&P, you can see that crypto since October 10th, the major liquidation event in the market, has been underperforming. Since that date, it's gone down. This is the total 3 index, 23% versus equities, which are up 3%. So a 26% differential. What I think has happened is a lot of traders, a lot of people that typically would be trading crypto are just seeking easier opportunities in equities. Now, as a crypto trader, I don't actually believe the opportunities are easier. In fact, I think there are far more experienced and sophisticated players in equities. However, I'm just observing what has actually happened. So looking at the shift that's happening, then we can start to piece together where liquidity could potentially flow. Looking at the NASDAQ as well, I think there is a pretty high likelihood we continue to push higher into 2026. I had Jason Pizzino on the show yesterday, and we also spoke about that. Despite the fact that Bitcoin looks weak, we do think that there could be continued upside in equities heading into next year. Now, we know what tends to happen as the macro cycle goes on. People go from safer assets and they progressively take on more risk as the cycle gets higher and higher and higher as they shift from US stocks to more aggressive tech stocks to emerging market stocks, and then at the end of the cycle start taking on a lot of leverage and start taking on a lot of risk. That is also the exact same thing that happens in the crypto market. At the start of the cycle, people focus on Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then towards the end of the cycle, people start gambling on altcoins and taking more risk. The exact same thing happens in equities. So if we are anticipating some sort of equities run next year, and we're anticipating at some point a blow off top for equities, then we have to start front running the market and looking at, okay, what are the assets that these people could be putting their money into? Now, I've started doing this already, moving down the risk curve a little bit from US stocks into Chinese equities and into some of the emerging market stocks. But I think the next frontier for markets after that is going to be the rotation into perpetuals and into prediction markets and into the narrative that we're going to be speaking about today as people move up the risk curve towards the end of the cycle, as so happens at the end of every cycle. As add some tweets here, can't wait for a crypto bro to make $1 million plus longing stocks, 10x levered on Hyperliquid, and then we onboard all of the US retail to perps. I think people are severely underestimating because, we're crypto native, we're used to the industry, right? But I think normies that are trading equities, which is the bigger market than crypto, by the way, and even a lot of crypto traders have moved into equities, they're underestimating just how good the on-chain trading experience is. And I think all it takes is a little bit of gasoline on the fire to really start a much bigger trend. And in fact, I think we're already starting to see the early signs of this rotation. So if Jordy is right and people do move into new casinos like equity perps, this could ironically be the biggest opportunity in the altcoin market itself. But why would people actually use crypto rails to long instead of, a traditional brokerage? Well, there are many, many advantages that once retail figures this out, and a lot already have because they're already using Polymarket and the numbers are going crazy. But once they start doing the exact same for equities, sky's the limit for the crypto industry. And this is where there is a lot of upside in terms of blockchain, in my opinion. So going through some of the differences here, blockchain is obviously available 24/7. Brokerages often follow traditional market hours. Blockchain is globally accessible. Brokerages require stringent KYC regulations and they're often slow. Blockchain allows you to take on higher leverage and there are often strict limits on brokerages. Costs are also a lot lower. We're even seeing a lot of fee-backed plans across these exchanges actually enabling you to pretty much trade for free, whereas we know brokerages are very, very high in terms of their fees. Also, you have the on-chain transparency element versus the opaque nature of traditional brokerages. And of course, very important, instant settlements and liquidity, whereas you have delays on traditional brokerages. So if people are going to trade equities, especially as we start to move up the risk curve, I think more and more of this is going to shift onto blockchain rails, and therein lies the opportunity in my opinion. So in today's video, we're going to get into the best protocols and then look at the best technical setups for the projects that are going to benefit from this trend that is very clearly happening in the market. And I think it's going to be the biggest trend of 2026. And look, this has already started with Polymarket. Polymarket is an application that was built on blockchain rails and is now starting to see its big breakthrough moment in terms of broader retail adoption and participation. You can see that open interest is almost $250 million at the moment on Polymarket. User numbers continue to skyrocket. Volume continues to skyrocket. Hyperliquid has already proven the concept for perps. The only thing left is perp volume for equities, which have recently been introduced. We saw Nvidia as one of the first stocks launched on Hyperliquid. So that is one of the tokens we're going to talk about today. And then we're also going to look at some of the lower caps, which could pose a huge opportunity in the market. So very exciting video because I think this is quite an obvious trend. And if you can position in it, I think there are huge gains. But before we break down the altcoins in the sector and my setups, I want to make a big announcement. It is the second last day of our 50% off Black Friday sale. So the Miles High Club, if you don't know already, is my exclusive community. This is where you get all of the alpha first. So whenever I trade something, buy something, sell something, I inform the Discord first. I post daily alpha across Bitcoin, Ethereum, and high conviction altcoin setups. In the Discord, there's also access to exclusive investment opportunities, which are coming very soon, which is very, very exciting for members. I'm willing to bet you'll probably end up FOMOing in later at the higher price if you don't take advantage of this Black Friday campaign, because that is going to be revealed very soon and we have some great stuff. We also have the live mentorships with not just me, but the other analysts. I think this is what makes the Discord so great. It's not just me. I truly believe I've built the Avengers of crypto. We have Paradise, who's an amazing low time frame chartist. We have Fabian, who is a great macro economist and is also really good on the low cap altcoin side of things. We have Doc, who's high time frame trading, alongside Morin, and then Surf as well, who's intraday trading. So we have traders, we have fundamentalists and macro guys, and then we have data, indicators, research reports, 100 hours of masterclasses, and much, much more. So I believe we've built the best product in crypto, and now is the cheapest that you are ever going to be able to try it out. So it's $99 for your first month, our lowest price ever. It will be our lowest price ever. And if you do want to commit to the annual plan as well, we have an offer. If you put in the code Black Friday, you're automatically going to get an extra 3 months added to your subscription on top of the 23% discount, which comes out to a 45% total discount. So you get 50% off your first month, or you can get 45% off your first year. This offer is only available for the next 48 hours. So use the link in the description below, put in the code Black Friday, and come be a part of the best community in crypto. And as I update my positions that we're going to get into later in today's video, I will update you guys first in the Discord as always. Now, getting into the sector overview. So we've discussed the opportunity for perp dexes and the perp equities narrative, but what are the biggest players in the market currently? So you have Hyperliquid, obviously as the biggest one. We can't ignore it. I'm going to chart it and give you some insight on that in a minute. You've got ASTER, which is Binance's version. Also can't ignore that. And then you can move down the risk curve and you get into more speculative territory, but here's where you have more upside. And there also are a lot of new protocols which are coming into the space and launching, giving you the opportunity to airdrop farm. Looking at who's leading for volume, Lighter is actually number one. Now, Lighter is an interesting one because this is one that Fabian shared in the Discord way back in May. And this has been a huge opportunity for anyone that was farming it. So you can see Fabian back in May saying it was one of the exchanges that he was farming. And he did say in his questions channel as well at the same time, I'm doing all my majors trading on Lighter, and did multiple updates after that about how you could actually do Lighter farming. So he gave the full tutorial, the full loop for you guys to point farm on Lighter. Lighter points at one point were over $100, and I think at the moment they're sitting around $60 to $70 OTC. So a lot of the Discord members are set for 5-figure airdrops. I'm sure Fabian is set for a massive airdrop. If I had to guess, probably 6 to 7 figures, because he did a lot of farming on Lighter, and yeah, anyone that was farming it in the early days had a big opportunity there. However, I do think because there's a lot of airdrop farmers, this has slightly inflated the valuation. So although the open interest and the volume is high, the valuation is also higher. So I'm bullish on it as a product, but we're obviously going to need to see if it's a liquid opportunity once it launches, but it's one to keep your eye on. Now, the next one in the PerpDex market is Hyperliquid. They have recently introduced some of the biggest equities. So, for example, you can trade NVIDIA USDC here. Remember, as the cycle goes on, people are going to take on more risk as things get more euphoric. This is one way that people can speculate on equities, just as Polymarket is now giving people a way to speculate on prediction markets. So this is the next natural progression, in my opinion. Hyperliquid itself is an interesting play. The only thing you have to be aware of is the fact that there are unlocks. Fabian posted this 4 days ago in the Discord with the staking queue and the unlocks. There could be a bit of sell pressure in the short term, but that could create an opportunity if you are bullish on it over the longer term. The unlocks aren't significant. There is a decent amount. So personally, I'm playing the chart technically, and I'm looking at 2 key zones. I'm looking at the wick fill from October 10th. This is a key level on many alts if that gap does get filled, or I'm looking at a confirmed reclaim or a weekly close above the 36 pivot point. This is the same point that we wicked up to on day one, has been the same support level for a long period of time until we recently lost it. So if this ends up being a deviation reclaim play on the weekly confirmation, I may look at taking a position with a stop below the prior low. If not, I'm going to look at targeting the lows. I think on a lot of altcoins right now, there's basically this if this, then that setup where there are 2 scenarios. Many altcoins are in the middle of a reclaim range and a low. And when you're in a scenario like this, typically you want to wait for a reclaim or the retest of an extremity before getting into a position in the middle of a range. So many altcoins right now are hanging in the balance, but that's okay. You just create conditional scenarios where if price reacts in a certain way, then you can look at getting in. Hyperliquid, though, is an asset I'm holding in my long-term portfolio as well. I'm not just trading. I'm just talking about where I would add to that position. And so I have some sort of invalidation on the newest ads, keeping in mind, I do want to hold this for the longer term, because if this thesis plays out of more equities traders coming to blockchain rails because it's so much more efficient, because it's so much quicker, because it's so much cheaper, then Hyperliquid being the number one is definitely going to have market share and could do very well as an asset. And then you also have HLP staking as another thing you can look into. And then you also have the airdrops as well as a secondary thing. So that's Hyperliquid. That is the biggest one in the market. Now, the next biggest one, which has also been doing really well for volume lately, and we know Binance is pushing, CZ is pushing, is ASTER. Similar to Hyperliquid, there is a level on ASTER that I'm looking at the 95 cent zone. This would be the range low retest. If we don't get that, I'm looking at a potential breakout from the range high at 126. Once again, it's a conditional scenario, so I'm not diddling in the middle of the range, but if we get a reaction to either side, I'll look at building a position. You might ask, Mars, if you're bullish long term, then why do you even bother with technical analysis? Well, for me, technical analysis just enables me to get a better entry so I can have an invalidation on that position. Otherwise, if you're longing in no man's land, you're basically accepting that if you're wrong or the narrative goes against you, the stopgap can be quite detrimental to your portfolio. Like it could be 30% or 25% until I look to invalidate a position if I buy here. Whereas if I buy it at support, then my gap might only be 10 or 15%. So I just have better risk reward on the trade, and it keeps me sane because at least I have some sort of physical level to manage risk off of. Manage my entry and manage my exit, even though I want to build a position here for the long term. So if you're in the Discord, if you've been watching my content for a matter of months, you'll know I hit my year's best trade on this, getting it at 40 cents, riding it up to $2. And obviously it ended up going even higher than that to $2.50. I haven't done much since then. I took profits in that zone. I'm just waiting to build a position, and I think consolidation around 95 would be a great position on ASTER. Now, just like Binance has its affiliated DEX ASTER, Bybit, the second biggest exchange in crypto, has its DEX, which is Apex, which Ben has also been pushing. Now, this is also coming back down after a massive pump to a key level. This is the same level that we wicked up on way back in 2022, and it's also acted as a support zone in March 2025. So it's the most key level you have on the chart, or the closest key level on the chart, which is a point of interest. And if we react to this zone, I'm going to be watching the reaction and looking to maybe build a position in this zone. You could even, in my opinion, start if you are bullish, and obviously do your own research. This video, of course, is not financial advice. If you are bullish, you could maybe start laddering in now, but maybe be willing to cut below, because if we do revisit the lows, the point of control is around 12 cents. I don't think it's going to 12 cents, but it's something to be aware of. And I still hold an Apex spot position, by the way, from a couple of months ago. So I am down on that position by like 30-40%, but I'll potentially look to add to my position to get my cost basis a little bit lower. Remember, my thesis here is like a 12-month thesis. It's not a short-term thing. I want to be holding the best infrastructure. I want to be holding the best DEXs, obviously keeping risk management in mind so I can take advantage of this trend. Now, these are probably the liquid ones I'm most interested in. There's also Injective, there's also Avo, there's a few extras, but not all of them have equities yet. For example, Drift Protocol, which I like on Solana, it doesn't, they're coming out with Drift V3 soon, but it doesn't have Perp Equities yet. So obviously they may introduce it, but look through the roadmap and work that out for yourself before taking a position. Personally, I'm waiting on it, but it is on my watch list. And there are new ones which are starting to rise to prominence and starting to gain a lot of volume. Mike Novogratz is pushing Trade.xyz. Obviously, Mike is the CEO at Galaxy, obviously a very well-known player in the crypto space. So he's been pushing this quite hard, and there could be an airdrop opportunity here, given the fact the token isn't launched yet. So that is something I would also be looking into. When a DEX starts to rise to prominence and has big backing, especially if they did a big raise, oftentimes they end up doing an airdrop and gives you a chance to build points. Hyperliquid did a big airdrop. ASTER did an airdrop. I know that Lighter is obviously doing a massive airdrop as well, that Fabian and a lot of the Discord members will be getting great access to because they've been farming it all year. And some of the newer ones like this can also spell opportunity if you want to either bring your normal trading there or manufacture or farm some trading there. So you've got your own decision based on your portfolio around that. But these can be opportunities in the market as well. So I do believe the Perp DEX narrative, specifically Perp Equities, are one of the biggest untapped retail niches in the space because it's one of the only niches which can actually get new people into crypto. I think prediction markets are very similar. I think tokenization is very similar. But I think in terms of the obvious trend, in terms of where the cycle is going and where risk will end up going, this just makes sense. And we've only seen the volume go up and up and up across this overall. So it's something to keep your eye on. And as I actively take new positions, I'll keep you updated in the Discord, which of course now you can get access to for our lowest price ever for 48 hours only. By the way, we have a ton of positive reviews. Go and read the reviews. We're one of the highest rated Discords in the space on WAP, and it's for a reason. We do right by our members. We work really, really hard. We have great analysis, and I think we've built the best community in crypto. But obviously come join and test that out for yourself. I will see you in the next video. Hope you enjoyed. Have a lovely rest of your day. Peace out.